Hello. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the sort of geometric point of view for absolute values. So absolute values we know of, right, is this idea of making things positive. And we have this nice little notation here, the two bars. As a side note, sometimes you see a double bar version of this, so it looks something like this, just so you're sort of aware of it in various texts and other classes and things. This is also sometimes referred to as a norm, but by the time you get to the point where that word shows up, you'll have a little bit more information about that. So just so you know, these things are very similar concepts to the point where I'm just going to sort of say that they're the same with a little asterisk that norms are a little bit more complicated, but by the time you run into them, you'll know what I'm talking about at that point. So just so you know, some texts use these like double bar things sort of regardless. You can still treat them as a absolute value at this point. All right, so absolute value. We know that these things make numbers positive, right? How it does that is a little bit of a sort of analytic mystery. We'll get to that in another video. But a better sort of way of thinking about this, at least geometrically, is that absolute value is more of an idea of distance between two values. So for example, if I said that the distance between some value x and 3 is 2, right? You have some number, and all you know about that number is the distance between that number and 3 is 2. Well, you could figure it out by making a number line and saying, okay, I know where 3 is, right? Deep thinker here. And I know that the distance I want is 2 away from that. So I could go 2 to the right, that would give me 5. But I could also go 2 to the left, and that would give me 1. So if I know that the distance from 3 for this number is 2, then I'm looking at either 1 or 5. Right, and that would be the value of x. The way we would write that is this x minus 3 in absolute value equals 2. Okay, so in particular, when we talk about the distance between two values, x and a, then we write that as the absolute value of x minus a. Note the minus, that's important. It's not x plus a, x minus a. So when we see absolute value of x minus a number, that means the distance between x and that number. This is a good way of visualizing what you're looking at. Now, as a sort of follow-up question, what does it mean then if I have just the absolute value of x, right? Because I'm talking about how you can think of absolute value as being distance between two things, but what if we only have the one thing? Well, whenever we have the one thing, we can really make it 2, right? By saying, okay, instead of just having absolute value of x, we could have absolute value of x minus 0. It's a little goofy to write, right? We would normally just simplify that away. But from a geometric standpoint, we can think of it as the distance between, right, because I have x minus a number, so absolute value is really a distance between x and 0, right? So this motivates the idea of this distance from 0 is often how people sort of just explain what absolute value is, but that's really a consequence of this idea of being distance between two numbers, this x minus a, okay? Now, as a sort of last example / common form of an example. A lot of times this is combined with absolute values are often combined with this inequality bit. So for example, if I'm looking at absolute value of x minus 3 less than or equal to 5, I could, again, from a geometric standpoint, think of this as the distance from x to 3 is at most 5, right? So I could figure out what that is by putting down the value I'm looking at the distance from, 3, and going sort of to the extreme. I'm at most 5 away from 3. So if I go to the right, that would be 8. If I go to the left, that would be -2. And I know I'm sort of at most that far away, so I would be that far away or less, meaning that my total solution would be anything in that range, right? Anything between -2 and +8, okay? All right, so what do we do? Well, we talked about the geometric idea, or the geometric view of absolute value, this idea that you can take an absolute value and think of it as the distance between two numbers, where if you are given two numbers, like the absolute value of x minus 2, that would be the difference, right? The difference part gives you the distance, so we'd have the distance from x to 2. If it's plus, right, if we have something like the absolute value of x plus 7, that would be, we would think of that as x minus -7. So it would be the distance between x and -7. But if we only have the one, absolute value of x, we really think of that as distance from x to 0, because we really we could rewrite it, right, as absolute value of x minus 0. So we still have two things in there, even if it only looks like one. Okay? So that is that.